Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, Shattered Glass. Dominic Reeves stood before his latest architectural masterpiece, a gleaming 30-story building that would reshape the Dallas skyline. At 45, he built a reputation for designs that were both innovative and uncompromising, much like the man himself. "Mr. Reeves, the investors are impressed," his assistant Trent murmured, handing him a glass of champagne. "They're calling it your finest work." Dom barely nodded, his steel-gray eyes scanning the room of wealthy clients and industry peers. He wasn't here for validation. He'd stopped needing that long ago. His gaze settled on Howard Prescott, who had questioned his vision for the building's unconventional foundation 6 months ago. "Remember Prescott's concerns about my support structure design?" Dom said quietly. Trent nodded. "The one who insisted we needed to revise everything? Just got word his own project in Houston collapsed during construction. 3 injured." Dom took a measured sip of champagne. "I don't forget people who doubt me. Ever." The phone in his pocket vibrated. Vanessa. Even after 15 years of marriage, seeing her name still brought a slight warmth to his otherwise calculated demeanor. He excused himself and stepped onto the balcony. "I'm wrapping up here," he answered. "Dom," Vanessa's voice trembled. "Brooke is asking if you'll be at her dance recital tonight. I know you said you might be late." Dominic checked his watch. His daughter's performance started in an hour. "I'll be there. Tell her I never miss what matters." Unlike his own father, who had abandoned their family when Dom was 12, leaving him to care for his dying mother, Dominic had built his life on unshakable reliability. His rules were simple: loyalty above all, protect what's yours, and never forget those who wrong you. As he drove home to change before the recital, Dom reflected on how carefully he'd constructed his life. Vanessa, with her warm smile and quiet intelligence, had been his opposite when they'd met during his graduate studies. Where he was calculating, she was spontaneous. Where he was rigid, she flowed. Their children, Brooke, 16, and Parker, 20, had been raised with everything Dom never had: stability, affluence, and unwavering support. His phone rang again. Not Vanessa this time, but Spencer Davenport, his friend of 20 years. They'd met when Dom was designing his first commercial project, and Spencer was the ambitious real estate developer who took a chance on him. They'd risen together, becoming each other's confidants and allies. "Dom, we still on for racquetball tomorrow?" Spencer asked. 6 a.m. "Don't be late again," Dom replied, the hint of a smile in his voice despite his words. When he arrived home, the sprawling house was quiet. He changed quickly, noticing that Vanessa had laid out his favorite tie, the small gestures that had sustained their marriage. As he adjusted it in the mirror, he noticed a folded note that had fallen from his jacket pocket, a receipt from La Maison, an upscale downtown hotel. He frowned. He hadn't been there in months, not since meeting a client from Europe. The detail niggled at him as he drove to the recital hall. Something else had been off lately, too: Vanessa's sudden interest in wellness retreats every other weekend, her new password on her phone, the late-night texts she claimed were from her sister Melanie. He pushed the thoughts aside as he took his seat in the auditorium. Parker waved from a few rows ahead, sitting with his college friends. Dom nodded back, proud of how his son had followed his footsteps into architecture despite Dom's demanding expectations. Halfway through Brooke's performance, Dom's phone vibrated with an urgent message from his site manager: structural issues discovered at the new project. As the recital ended, he kissed Brooke's forehead, promised Vanessa he'd be home later, and drove to the construction site, unaware that the real collapse in his life was yet to come. Chapter 2, Fault Lines. 3 days later, Dom sat in his home office reviewing blueprints when Vanessa breezed in, dressed for what she called her book club. "I'll be back around 9, she said, avoiding his eyes. "Third book club this week," Dom remarked, his tone even but his eyes narrowing slightly. Vanessa's smile faltered momentarily. "We're doing a special series. Melanie organized it." Dom merely nodded, watching as she left. After hearing her car pull away, he opened his laptop and checked the tracking app he'd installed on her phone after weeks of growing suspicion. The dot moved steadily, not toward her sister's neighborhood, but toward downtown. He closed the laptop, his face impassive despite the cold fury building inside him. 20 minutes later, his phone rang, a Dallas area code he didn't recognize. "Mr. Reeves?" a woman's voice asked. "This is Mercy Hospital. Your wife has been in a car accident." The world seemed to compress around him. "How severe?" "She's stable, but she's asking for you." Dom drove with mechanical precision, his mind cycling through scenarios and contingencies, his default when confronted with chaos. At the hospital, he moved swiftly through the corridors until a nurse at the station stopped him. "Only family allowed," she said firmly. "I'm her husband," Dom replied, his voice betraying nothing of the adrenaline coursing through him. The nurse checked her chart, her expression shifting. "That's strange. Another man already signed in as her husband." For the first time in decades, Dominic Reeves felt his carefully constructed control slipping. The nurse continued speaking, but her words became distant as he moved past her toward Vanessa's room. Inside, he found Spencer Davenport holding his wife's hand, their fingers intertwined with the easy familiarity of longtime lovers. Vanessa's face drained of color when she saw Dom in the doorway. "We've been trying to find the right time to tell you," Spencer began, not releasing Vanessa's hand. Dom stood perfectly still, absorbing the scene like a photograph he would never forget. His best friend and his wife. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The hotel receipt he'd found had been Spencer's, accidentally transferred to his jacket during their last racquetball game. The weekend retreats. The late-night texts. Without a word, Dom turned and left, ignoring Vanessa's broken call of his name. In the parking lot, he sat in his car, hands gripping the steering wheel, his breathing measured despite the roaring in his ears. The betrayal wasn't just the affair, it was the calculated deception from the two people he had trusted most. For 3 weeks, Dom went through the motions of his life with mechanical precision. He moved into his downtown apartment above his studio, filed for divorce through his attorney, and continued overseeing his projects. He answered messages from Parker with brief reassurances, but ignored the 27 increasingly desperate calls from Vanessa. On the 28th call, he finally answered. "What could you possibly have to say?" His voice was controlled, almost curious. "Please, Dom. Let me explain. It's not what you think. I saw exactly what it is." He cut her off. "How long?" The silence told him everything. 2 years, she finally whispered. 2 years. Parker's graduation. His mother's funeral. The anniversary trip to Belize. All lies. "Dom, please," Vanessa continued. "Spencer doesn't mean anything to me. It was a mistake." "No," Dom interrupted, his voice now tinged with something that made Vanessa fall silent. "A mistake is something you do once. You made thousands of deliberate choices to betray me. Every lie, every night, every message. You chose this. What about the kids? Can we at least talk about? Parker is an adult. Brooke is old enough to understand betrayal. I'll see you at the divorce proceedings." As he ended the call, Dom didn't feel rage or heartbreak. Instead, a familiar cold clarity settled over him. The same feeling he'd had at 12 when he'd realized his father wasn't coming back. The same resolve that had carried him through building his company when investors abandoned him early on. Betrayal didn't break Dominic Reeves. It crystallized him. Chapter 3. Calculated Response. The family home that Dom had designed himself now felt like a mausoleum of lies. He stood in the foyer, having arranged to collect some personal items while Vanessa was out. Footsteps on the stairs revealed Parker, home from graduate school for the weekend. "Dad," Parker said, his expression caught between anger and relief. "You finally showed up." Dom studied his son's face. "I'm here for my things." "That's it? After 23 years of marriage, you're just walking away?" "Mom's devastated." "Is that what she told you?" Dom asked, his voice eerily calm. Parker stepped closer. "She said you found out about her and Spencer, and I get it. It's messed up. But families work through things. They talk. They don't just vanish." "Did she mention it's been going on for 2 years? That they've been systematically lying to all of us?" Dom maintained eye contact, watching the information land. Parker faltered. 2 years? But that means during my graduation." "Yes." The doorbell interrupted them. Dom opened it to find Brooke, tears streaming down her face, her dance bag slung over her shoulder. "I hate her," she said, pushing past him into the house. "I hate them both." Dom closed the door. "What happened?" I went to Uncle Spencer's office to surprise him. He promised to help with my college applications. Brooke's voice was tight with fury. His assistant said he was meeting with Mom, so I waited. When they came out, they were kissing. Like it was normal. Like they weren't destroying everything. Parker sank onto the stairs, head in his hands. Dom placed a steady hand on Brooke's shoulder. I need you both to understand something, he said, his tone leaving no room for dispute. What happens next isn't about reconciliation. It's not about forgiveness. I don't forgive betrayal, not from anyone. So what? You're just done with Mom? Parker asked. Your mother made her choice. So did Spencer. Dom's eyes hardened. Now I'm making mine. Later that evening, Dom sat in his downtown office when Raymond Gallo, his head of security and one of the few people he genuinely trusted, entered with a file. You were right, Ray said, placing the file on Dom's desk. Financials, communications, hotel records, it's all there. Dom flipped through pages of bank statements, phone records, and time-stamped security footage. And the properties? 3 under-shell companies. One in Aspen, one in the Bahamas, and one by the lake. Spencer's been preparing for a while. Dom closed the file. He always said I taught him to have contingency plans. Yet he wasn't smart enough to hide his affairs from his own company's security systems. What's the play here, Dom? Ray asked. Legal route. Scandal? Financial takedown. Dom walked to the window overlooking the Dallas skyline. The building directly across housed Spencer's company headquarters, close enough that Dom could see the executive offices. People like Spencer and Vanessa think betrayal is just an inconvenient chapter. Something you do, then move past. Dom turned, his expression neutral, yet somehow more frightening for its calmness. I'm going to show them it's the whole story. The beginning, middle, and end. Ray had worked with Dom long enough to recognize the resolve in his voice. How far are we taking this? All the way, Dom replied. First step is information. I want everything. Who else knows? Who helped them? What they've planned? Then I want options. Options for what? Dom's smile was barely perceptible. For making them understand the meaning of consequence. By midnight, Dom had formulated the framework of his response. It wouldn't be emotional. It wouldn't be rushed. It would be methodical deconstruction, the same process he applied to rebuilding structurally compromised buildings. Identify the weaknesses. Remove the damaged elements. Rebuild something stronger on the ruins. Chapter 4. Structural Weaknesses. 5 weeks after the hospital revelation, Dom sat across from his lawyer, Nora Harrington, in her sleek downtown office. She slid divorce papers toward him with manicured fingers. They're offering a clean split, she said. 50-50 on all assets acquired during marriage. Dom didn't touch the papers. And you advised them that's unacceptable? Nora's lips quirked. I informed them of the prenuptial terms, yes. Your separate property remains separate, including your company shares and intellectual property. And Spencer's company? Not technically part of the divorce proceedings, but... She hesitated. Vanessa's attorney mentioned they'd appreciate your discretion regarding their relationship. They want my silence. Dom translated, his voice flat. They've indicated a willingness to provide additional compensation for a non-disclosure agreement. Dom finally took the papers, scanning the terms with practiced efficiency. They're afraid. As they should be, Nora replied. She'd represented Dom for 15 years and knew his methodical nature. Your counteroffer? Accept the prenup enforcement. Decline the NDA request. I want full custody of Brooke until she's 18. Nora made notes. Vanessa won't agree to full custody. She's the mother. She's also the adulterer who betrayed her family with her husband's best friend, Dom countered. I have documentation of her absences during key events in Brooke's life over the past 2 years due to her appointments with Spencer. Documentation? Dom slid a flash drive across the desk. Calendar entries, security footage from our home system showing her leaving before and returning after multiple school functions, therapy appointments, and family events. Plus testimony from Brooke herself. Nora pocketed the drive. This will get ugly. It already is. Dom stood to leave. One more thing. I want a forensic accounting of all household expenses for the past 3 years. Credit cards, bank accounts, everything. Looking for something specific? Dom paused at the door. Just confirming what I already know. Meanwhile, across town, Spencer Davenport paced his penthouse office as his financial advisor delivered unwelcome news. 3 major investors have pulled out of the Riverwalk project, the advisor reported nervously. They cited concerns about company stability. Spencer stopped pacing. Which investors? Matsuda Group, Wellington Partners, and Crown Holdings. All clients Spencer had obtained through Dom's connections. The timing wasn't coincidental. He's starting, Spencer muttered, then turned to his advisor. Move our liquid assets to the offshore accounts. Accelerate the merger discussions with Barrett Construction. Sir, Barrett's offer undervalues us by at least 30%. Just do it, Spencer snapped. And get me whatever leverage you can find on Dominic Reeves. That evening, Dom visited his daughter at Melanie's house, where Brooke had been staying since the revelation. He found her in the guest room, surrounded by textbooks. How's the physics coming along? He asked, leaning against the doorframe. Brooke looked up, her eyes, so like his own, lighting with relief at his presence. I hate it, but I'm maintaining my 4.0. That's my girl. He sat on the edge of the bed. I've filed for custody. Brooke nodded. Good. I already told Mom I want to live with you. It might get complicated. Legal proceedings usually do. Mom's already trying to paint you as absent. Workaholic. Emotionally unavailable. Brooke's voice was bitter, as if that justifies what she did. Dom studied his daughter, noting the hardness that had crept into her expression over the past weeks. Don't let their actions change who you are, Brooke. Why not? You're changing. I've never seen you like this. I'm not changing, Dom corrected her. I'm revealing who I've always been. Later that night, Dom met Ray at a nondescript bar on the edge of town. The location was deliberate, far from their usual haunts where they might be recognized. We've got something, Ray said, sliding a folder across the table. Spencer's company isn't just in financial trouble. He's been moving money through a series of shell corporations, then back to personal accounts. Dom opened the folder to find bank statements and transaction records. Money laundering? Looks like it, Ray confirmed. And there's more. Remember that contractor who died on his Houston project last year? The one ruled an accident. Hernandez. Scaffolding collapse. Ray nodded. I found emails suggesting Spencer knew about safety violations but concealed them to avoid construction delays. Dom absorbed this information with cold calculation. And Vanessa? She's been moving money too. Small amounts from her personal accounts to a separate bank altogether. Started about 18 months ago. Their exit strategy, Dom surmised. Planning their new life together once they finally told me. Ray hesitated. There's one more thing. Your son, Parker. Dom's eye snapped up. He met with Spencer yesterday. Private room at the Capitol Grill. Stayed for over an hour. For the first time, a flicker of genuine emotion crossed Dom's face. Give me the security footage. Chapter 5, Pressure Points. The next morning, Dom stood in an upscale boutique in downtown Dallas, examining a display of watches. The store owner, a woman in her 50s named Gloria, approached him with professional warmth. Mr. Reeves, always a pleasure. Looking for something special. Dom indicated a particular timepiece. This one. It's for my son. As Gloria retrieved the watch, she hesitated. I thought I saw Parker last week with Mr. Davenport. They were looking at this exact model. Dom's expression remained neutral. Is that so? Yes. Mr. Davenport purchased it for him. Said it was a graduation gift. Dom examined the watch, a $15,000 Patek Philippe. I'll take the same one. Have it engraved. When Gloria returned with the wrapped package, Dom thanked her and added casually. Gloria, how long have we known each other? 20 years. Since you designed my first storefront, she confirmed. And in those 20 years, have I ever given you reason to doubt my word? Gloria looked confused. Never. Spencer Davenport is not who you think he is. I'd advise reconsidering any business arrangements you have with him. Gloria's expression shifted. My lease renewal with his company is next month. Perhaps you should diversify your options, Dom suggested mildly. Across town, Vanessa sat in her attorney's office, her composure cracking as she reviewed the latest divorce filing. He wants full custody? She looked up, stricken. He can't do that. Her attorney, a pragmatic woman named Diane, adjusted her glasses. Mrs. Reeves, I need to be frank. Your husband has substantial documentation of your absences during important events in your daughter's life. Events you missed because you were with Mr. Davenport. That doesn't make me a bad mother. No, but it makes his case stronger than we'd like. Additionally, Diane hesitated. What? He's submitted records showing you've been transferring funds to separate accounts over the past year and a half. The court might view this as preparation to abandon your family obligations. Vanessa paled. Those were just savings. For emergencies. $342,000 in emergencies. Diane's tone was skeptical. Mrs. Reeves, your husband is building a methodical case. He's not acting emotionally. He's dismantling your position piece by piece. That evening, Dom received a text from Parker asking to meet at his apartment. When his son arrived, Dom noticed the Patek Philippe on his wrist immediately. Nice watch, Dom remarked, pouring them both whiskey. Parker glanced down, then met his father's eyes. Spencer gave it to me. I know. Dom handed him a glass. Gloria told me. Parker took a long sip, then set the glass down. I met with him. I know that too. He offered me a position at his company. Said with the right guidance, I could be running my own division within 5 years. Parker's voice was tight. He also said you were planning to destroy him. That you were becoming unhinged with revenge. Dom studied his son, seeing the conflict in his eyes. And what do you think? I think. Parker struggled. I think Spencer betrayed you. But I also think he's always supported my career. Even when you pushed me harder than I thought I could take. So you're considering his offer? Parker's silence was answer enough. Dom moved to a drawer and removed a small box, placing it on the table. I bought you the same watch. Had it engraved. Parker opened the box to find an identical timepiece. He turned it over to read the inscription. Integrity is the only true legacy. Dad, Spencer isn't offering you a career, Dom said quietly. He's buying an alliance against me. He knows I'm vulnerable where you and Brooke are concerned. Parker looked up, confusion evident. What are you going to do to him? The question isn't what I'm going to do, Dom replied. It's what he's already done to himself. Ask him about Alberto Hernandez. Who? The contractor who died on his Houston site last year. Ask him if the safety violations were worth saving 2 weeks of construction time. Parker's expression shifted. What are you saying? I'm saying choose your loyalty carefully. Dom met his son's gaze directly. Because I never forget those who stand against me, even if they're my blood. The next day, Dom met with Olivia Mitchell, Spencer's ex-wife, at her ranch outside the city. A former competitive equestrian, Olivia had largely withdrawn from society after their contentious divorce 5 years earlier. I'm surprised you called, she said, pouring iced tea on her sprawling porch. Vanessa and I aren't exactly friends. I'm not here about Vanessa, Dom replied. I need information on Spencer's foreign accounts. Specifically, the ones he hid during your divorce. Olivia's eyes widened slightly. How did you know about those? The same way I know he leveraged his relationship with Judge Weston to get a favorable settlement. The same way I know about the safety cover-ups, the money laundering, and the bribery of city officials for expedited permits. She set her glass down. What exactly are you planning, Dominic? Justice, he said simply. With your help, or without it. Olivia studied him, then stood and walked to a bookshelf. She removed a false panel and extracted a flash drive. My attorney found these accounts too late to include in the settlement, she explained, handing him the drive. Spencer doesn't know I have this information. I was saving it. For what? Olivia's smile was cold. The right moment. I believe that moment has arrived. As Dom drove back to the city, Ray called with an update. Spencer's trying to fast-track a merger with Barrett Construction. He's desperate for liquidity. Block it, Dom instructed. Use the safety violation documentation. Send it anonymously to Barrett's legal team. Already done, Ray confirmed. Also, Vanessa requested a meeting. Says it's about the children. Dom considered this. Set it up. Public place. Tomorrow. You sure that's wise? No, Dom admitted. But it's necessary. The children need to see who we really are. Chapter 6. Controlled Demolition. Dom chose the Gardens, an upscale restaurant with a private terrace, for his meeting with Vanessa. He arrived early, selecting a table with a clear view of both entrances, a habit from years of business negotiations. Vanessa arrived precisely on time, still beautiful at 43, though strain had etched new lines around her eyes. She wore a conservative navy dress, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple chignon. the image of contrition. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, taking the seat across from him. Dom nodded almost imperceptibly. "You mentioned the children." "Yes." Vanessa folded her hands on the table. "Brooke refuses to speak to me. And Parker, he's caught in the middle. This isn't healthy for either of them. Their mother's affair with their father's best friend isn't healthy either," Dom replied evenly. "Yet here we are." Vanessa flinched. "I deserve that. But Dom, please, can we try to handle this divorce with some dignity? For their sake." Dom studied her, noting the calculated vulnerability in her expression. 15 years ago, when Gregory Baldwin tried to steal my downtown project, do you remember what you told me?" Confusion flickered across her face. "What does that have to do with?" "You said, don't just beat him, Dom. Make sure he never tries to take what's yours again." Dom's voice remained conversational. "It was one of the things I loved about you. Your understanding that consequences must be absolute to be effective. We're talking about our family, not business." "No," Dom corrected her. "We're talking about betrayal. And we both know there's no distinction." Vanessa's composure slipped. "What do you want? To punish me? Fine. Take the house. Take the money. But don't use our children as weapons." "I'm not using them as anything. I'm showing them the reality you created." Dom leaned forward slightly. "You didn't just betray me, Vanessa. You betrayed them. Every time you missed Brooke's therapy sessions to be with Spencer. Every time you lied about where you were during Parker's campus visits." "I made mistakes," she whispered. "Terrible ones. But I love our children. Yet you were willing to risk their security, their trust, their sense of family. All for what? The excitement of sneaking around with Spencer?" Dom's tone remained clinical, which somehow made his words more devastating. "You weren't thinking about them when you were planning your new life. The offshore accounts. The properties." Vanessa paled. "How did you?" "I know everything," Dom interrupted. "The lake house in Spencer's sister's name. The Bahamian accounts. The apartment in New York under Coastal Ventures, LLC. Dom, please. You're requesting joint custody of Brooke." He continued as if she hadn't spoken. "Yet in the past 6 months, you've spent a total of 12 weekends away from her. With Spencer. I have the receipts, the flight information, the hotel stays." Tears formed in Vanessa's eyes. "What are you going to do?" Dom stood, placing his napkin beside his untouched water glass. "I'm going to show our children that loyalty matters, that actions have consequences, and that some betrayals can never be forgiven." As he walked away, Vanessa called after him. "You can't be this cold. Not the man I married." Dom paused, turning slightly. "You never really knew the man you married. That was your first mistake." Across town, Spencer Davenport faced his own reckoning. He sat in his office, staring at the email that had just destroyed his hopes for a merger with Barrett Construction. The message contained detailed documentation of the Houston safety violations, including his own emails instructing site managers to continue work despite engineer warnings. Attached was a police report request for reopening the investigation into Alberto Hernandez's death. His phone rang, his attorney. "Barrett's pulled out," the lawyer said without preamble. "And we've received a subpoena for all records related to the Houston project. Someone's made a formal complaint to OSHA." "Dominic," Spencer muttered. "Whoever it is, they've done their homework. This isn't something we can sweep away. And there's more. 3 of your biggest international clients have suspended contracts pending resolution of these allegations." Spencer ended the call and poured himself a drink with shaking hands. His personal phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. He knows everything. About the accounts, the properties. All of it. As panic set in, his office door opened. Parker Reeves stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "Parker," Spencer managed, forcing a smile. "I didn't expect you today." "Who was Alberto Hernandez?" Parker asked quietly. Spencer's smile faltered. "Who?" "The contractor who died on your Houston site. The one whose safety concerns you ignored to save construction time." "That's not." "Who told you that?" "Your father." Parker entered the office fully, closing the door behind him. "He told me to ask you. So I did my own research. Court records are public, Spencer. It was an accident, Parker. Construction is dangerous. Not when proper protocols are followed." Parker's voice was steady, so like his father's that Spencer felt a chill. "I also asked about the offshore accounts. The money laundering. The bribes." Spencer set his glass down. "Parker, Whatever Dom's told you. He didn't tell me anything specific, Parker interrupted. He just pointed me in the right direction. I found the rest myself, including your plans with my mother. Spencer sank into his chair. You don't understand. Your father, he's a good man, but he's ruthless, unforgiving. We knew he would react this way. So you prepared. Set up escape plans. Hidden money. Secret properties. Parker nodded, all while pretending to be his friend, while having dinner at our house every Sunday. It's complicated. No. Parker removed the Patek Philippe from his wrist and placed it on Spencer's desk. It's actually very simple. You betrayed my father. You helped destroy my family. And now you're facing the consequences. As Parker turned to leave, Spencer called desperately. Parker, wait. I can explain everything. Your father isn't who you think he is. Parker paused at the door. That's where you're wrong. He's exactly who I thought he was. The only people who weren't who I thought they were are you and Mom. That night, Dom sat in his downtown apartment, reviewing the day's developments with Ray. Barrett pulled out of the merger, Ray reported, and the DA's office has opened a preliminary investigation into the Hernandez case. Dom nodded. Olivia's information? Verified. The accounts exist, and they're substantial. Enough to trigger tax evasion concerns if properly reported. And Vanessa's transfers? Connected to the same network. She's been funneling her personal inheritance through similar channels. Dom stared out at the city lights. Parker came to see me after meeting Spencer. Return the watch Spencer gave him. Ray raised an eyebrow. Choosing sides. Choosing truth, Dom corrected. Which is all I've ever expected from either of my children. His phone buzzed with a text from Brooke. Mom keeps calling, begging to talk. What should I do? Dom replied, whatever you believe is right. Just remember who was there for every recital, every doctor's appointment, every nightmare. Even when I was working, I was present. She chose otherwise. As he set the phone down, Dom reflected that his revenge wasn't about destroying Spencer and Vanessa. It was about revealing who they truly were, to themselves, to his children, and to the world. The demolition was proceeding exactly as planned. Chapter 7. Exposed Foundations. 6 months after the hospital revelation, Dominic Reeves stood in the courtroom as the judge delivered her custody ruling. Beside him sat Brooke, now 17, her face impassive in a way that reminded Dom painfully of himself. The court grants primary physical custody to Dominic Reeves, with supervised visitation rights to Vanessa Reeves, the judge announced. This arrangement will continue until Brooke reaches 18, at which point she may decide her own visitation schedule. Across the aisle, Vanessa pressed a tissue to her eyes. Spencer wasn't present. Their relationship had become increasingly strained as Dom's methodical dismantling of their lives progressed. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. The case had become headline news after documents regarding Spencer's business practices mysteriously leaked to major media outlets. The safety violations, the financial improprieties, the laundered money, all splashed across business pages and evening news. Dom guided Brooke through the crowd without comment, ignoring shouted questions. You didn't leak those documents about Mom and Spencer, did you? Brooke asked when they were safely in his car. Dom started the engine. Would it matter if I did? No, Brooke admitted. They're true, aren't they? Truth is the one thing I've never compromised on, Dom replied. Not with you. Not with Parker. Not with anyone. Later that afternoon, Dom received an unexpected visitor at his office. Melanie Carlton, Vanessa's sister, approached his desk with evident discomfort. I didn't think you'd agree to see me, she said. We've known each other 20 years, Dom replied. You're still family to my children. Melanie sat opposite him. That's why I'm here. Vanessa is spiraling, Dom. The custody decision, the financial investigations, Spencer pulling away. She's talking about moving abroad. Starting over. Her choice, Dom said without inflection. What about Brooke? Parker? Do you want them to lose their mother entirely? Dom's expression remained impassive. What Vanessa didn't understand, what Spencer never grasped, is that choices have permanent consequences. When you tear down a foundation, you can't simply rebuild it and expect the structure to stand. This isn't about buildings, Melanie argued. It's about people. About family. Exactly, Dom agreed. And family requires loyalty above all. Vanessa shattered that. Now she's facing the reality she created. Melanie stood, frustration evident. You know, Vanessa always said beneath your controlled exterior was a man capable of incredible warmth. I think she was wrong. There's nothing there but ice. Did Vanessa send you? Dom asked suddenly. Melanie hesitated. No, she doesn't know I'm here. Then why are you really here, Melanie? She sighed. Because despite everything, I still care about my sister. And because... She hesitated. Parker came to see me yesterday. He's worried about you. This caught Dom's attention. Worried how? He thinks your pursuit of justice has become consuming. That you're not just holding them accountable anymore, but systematically destroying them. Dom considered this. Justice without consequence is merely observation. And revenge without limits is just cruelty, Melanie countered. You've won, Dom. You've exposed them. Secured custody. Maintained your company. Isn't that enough? Dom stood, indicating the meeting was over. When Spencer and Vanessa decided to betray me, they didn't set limits on the damage they were willing to inflict. Why should I? As Melanie left, Dom's phone rang with a call from Ray. Spencer's called an emergency board meeting, Ray reported. He's trying to sell his remaining assets before the regulatory investigation freezes everything. And our contact at the DA's office says they're filing charges next week. Securities fraud, tax evasion, criminal negligence in the Hernandez case. Dom checked his watch. Time to deliver the final message. Meet me at the Metropolitan Club at 8. That evening, the Metropolitan Club, an exclusive establishment where Dallas elite conducted their most private business, hosted its usual array of power players. Dom entered precisely at 8, nodding to familiar faces as he made his way to the private dining room he'd reserved. Spencer was already waiting, a tumbler of scotch in his trembling hand. You requested this meeting, Spencer said, his once confident voice now hollow. Why? Dom sat across from him. To give you a choice. Spencer laughed bitterly. A choice? You've systematically destroyed everything I've built. My company's stock has plummeted. Investors are fleeing. The DA is filing charges next week. What possible choice do I have left? Confession or destruction? Dom replied calmly. Full disclosure of all illegal activities, return of embezzled funds, and voluntary surrender to authorities, or complete financial and personal annihilation. You can't be serious. Alberto Hernandez had 3 children. Dom continued as if Spencer hadn't spoken. Their father died because you prioritized profit over safety. His widow is struggling to keep their home. Spencer paled. How do you know that? I know everything about the lives you've damaged. Just as I know about the bribes to building Commissioner Langley, the offshore accounts in the Caymans, the money funneled through your sister's art gallery. Dom's eyes were cold. And I have documentation for all of it. If you had enough for prosecution, I'd already be charged. Some evidence requires context to be admissible. Context I'm prepared to provide, unless you take responsibility yourself. Spencer drained his glass. And Vanessa? What happens to her in this scenario? She chose her path when she chose you. You really are a heartless bastard, Spencer muttered. 20 years of friendship means nothing. Dom leaned forward slightly. When did our friendship end for you, Spencer? Was it the first time you slept with my wife? Or had you already decided I was disposable before that? Spencer had no answer. You have until tomorrow to decide, Dom continued. Confession or destruction. I've prepared documentation for both scenarios. As Dom stood to leave, Spencer asked, what about redemption? Second chances. Dom paused at the door. Some betrayals can't be redeemed. Some relationships can't be rebuilt. You taught me that. Chapter 8. Permanent Fractures. The next morning, Dom stood in his kitchen preparing coffee when Parker arrived, using the key he still kept. We need to talk, Parker said, his expression grim. Dom gestured to a stool at the counter. Coffee. Spencer called me last night after your meeting. He was drunk, talking about confessions, prison, ending it all. Parker accepted the mug Dom offered. What exactly did you say to him? The truth, Dom replied. That his actions have consequences he can no longer avoid. Parker studied his father. This has gone beyond justice, Dad. This is systematic destruction. Is that what you see? I see a man who won't stop until there's nothing left of the people who hurt him. Parker's voice was quiet but firm, even if it means sacrificing parts of himself in the process. Dom leaned against the counter. When you were 10, you built that model bridge for your science project. Remember what happened? Parker frowned at the apparent change of subject. It collapsed during the presentation. Because Nathan Miller sabotaged one of the support beams, Dom continued. You were devastated. Humiliated in front of the whole class. What does that have to do with? I told you then what I'm telling you now. When someone deliberately damages what you've built, you don't just repair it. You rebuild it stronger and make sure they can never harm it again. Mom and Spencer hurt you. Parker acknowledged. Betrayed you. But Dad, you've already won. They've lost everything. Reputation, standing, financial security. Spencer's facing criminal charges. Mom's lost custody of Brooke. When does it end? Dom's expression remained impassive. It ends when justice is complete. And who decides when that is? You. Parker stood. Spencer said you gave him an ultimatum. What happens if he refuses to confess? Then I'll do what needs to be done. Parker shook his head. The father I grew up admiring knew the difference between justice and vengeance. The father you grew up with believed in loyalty above all, Dom countered. Something your mother and Spencer forgot. And what about your loyalty to the man you used to be? The one who taught me and Brooke about integrity, about being better than those who wrong us. Dom's phone rang before he could respond. It was Ray. Spencer's called a press conference, Ray reported. 1 hour. At his company headquarters. After Parker left, Dom drove to the gleaming tower that housed Davenport Development. A crowd of reporters had already gathered in the lobby. Dom remained at the back, unnoticed as Spencer approached the podium, looking haggard but composed. Thank you for coming, Spencer began, his voice steady despite his appearance. I've called this press conference to address the allegations regarding financial improprieties and safety violations at Davenport Development. Dom watched him passively as Spencer continued. The allegations are true, Spencer admitted. I personally directed the concealment of safety violations at our Houston project, which directly contributed to the death of Alberto Hernandez. I also authorized illegal financial transactions through offshore accounts and engaged in tax evasion. A murmur swept through the assembled reporters. I take full responsibility for these actions, Spencer continued. I've provided the district attorney's office with complete documentation of all illegal activities, and I will be surrendering myself to authorities this afternoon. As questions erupted, Spencer held up a hand. There's one more thing. These actions were mine alone. My personal relationship with Vanessa Reeves, while inappropriate, was separate from my business decisions. She had no knowledge of any illegal activities. Dom's eyes narrowed slightly at this unexpected development. After the press conference, as Spencer was escorted to a waiting car, he spotted Dom in the crowd. Their eyes met briefly, Spencer's resigned, Dom's unreadable. That evening, Dom received a call from Nora, his attorney. Spencer's confession changes things, she said. His deposition specifically absolves Vanessa of involvement in his financial crimes. Because she wasn't involved in those particular aspects, Dom replied. Still, it undermines part of our case. The judge might reconsider the custody arrangement if Vanessa petitions. Dom considered this. She won't petition. How can you be sure? Because I know things Spencer doesn't. Things Vanessa wouldn't want public, especially now. After ending the call, Dom drove to a modest suburban house on the outskirts of Dallas. A woman in her 40s answered his knock, recognition dawning in her eyes. Mr. Reeves? I'm Elena Hernandez. Thank you for seeing me, Dom said, entering when she gestured him inside. The home was simple but well kept. Photos of Alberto Hernandez and 3 children adorned the walls. I heard about the press conference, Elena said, offering him coffee. Spencer Davenport finally admitted what happened to Alberto. Dom accepted the cup. Yes, I wanted you to know there will be a settlement offer coming. For your family. Elena's eyes widened. From Davenport Development? From me, Dom clarified. A trust for your children's education. And this house, paid in full. But why? You didn't cause Alberto's death. No, Dom agreed. But I helped expose the truth. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about restoration where possible. As Dom drove back to the city, he received a text from Brooke. Mom's at Aunt Melanie's. She's asking to see me. Should I go? Dom pulled over to respond. That's your decision. Just remember who she chose when it mattered. Another text arrived moments later. This one from Parker. Spencer's turned himself in. Is this finally enough for you? Dom didn't respond. Chapter 9, Reconstruction. 1 year after the hospital revelation, Dom stood in the observation deck of his newest building, a sleek tower overlooking the Dallas skyline. Below, the city stretched out like a blueprint, each structure a testament to someone's vision, each street a path of possibility. The elevator doors opened, revealing Parker. "I got your message," his son said, approaching cautiously. "You wanted to meet?" Dom nodded. "Come see the view." They stood side by side, looking out over the city. "Spencer's sentencing is tomorrow," Parker remarked. 5 to 7 years, according to the news. "Justice for Alberto Hernandez," Dom replied. "And for the others hurt by his actions." Parker turned to face his father. "And Mom, is she ever going to receive your forgiveness?" "Forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting," Dom said quietly, "or pretending nothing happened." "She's leaving," Parker revealed. "Moving to California. Says there's nothing left for her here except memories of what she destroyed." Dom showed no reaction. "Brooke decides her own visitation now that she's 18. Said she might see Mom over the holidays, but she's focused on starting college." Dom nodded slightly, a hint of pride crossing his features. "She got her acceptance to MIT yesterday. Following in your architectural footsteps," Parker observed. "She told me she wants to design structures that last centuries. Permanent statements, she called them." "And you?" Dom asked. "Cornell's graduate program is prestigious." Parker hesitated. "Actually, I've decided to accept Stanford's offer instead. Their urban renewal specialization aligns better with my interests." "Stanford," Dom repeated, his tone neutral. "Where your mother will be living." "Yes." "You're choosing her side." Parker shook his head. "I'm not choosing sides at all. That's what you never understood, Dad. Healing broken things doesn't always mean destroying those who broke them." Dom turned back to the window. "When you've built something with your own hands, your life, your family, your legacy, you understand the unforgivable nature of betrayal." "I understand loyalty," Parker countered. "And consequences. What I don't understand is perpetual punishment. Mom betrayed you. Spencer betrayed you. They've lost everything. When is it enough?" Dom was silent for a long moment. "Did I ever tell you about my father?" Parker looked surprised at the change of subject. "Just that he left when you were young. He abandoned us when my mother got sick. Terminal cancer. Left me, at 12, to care for her until she died." Dom's voice remained even despite the weight of his words. "He returned years later, after I'd built my first successful project. Wanted to reconcile. Talked about forgiveness and second chances." "What did you do?" Parker asked quietly. "I told him exactly what I later told your mother, that some choices are permanent. Some betrayals can't be undone." Dom turned to face his son fully. "He died 3 years later. Alone. I didn't attend the funeral." Parker absorbed this. "So that's it. The pattern repeats. Mom dies alone someday. You stay unforgiving. Brooke and I pick sides." "Not sides," Dom corrected. "Values. Loyalty. Consequences. Truth. And what about redemption? Growth? The possibility that people can change." Dom's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "That's what you believe. It's what you taught us," Parker said. "Until this happened." Dom placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "Go to Stanford. Maintain your relationship with your mother. But remember what happened, why it happened, and protect yourself accordingly." "Is that forgiveness?" Parker asked skeptically. "No," Dom replied honestly. "It's acceptance. Recognition that her relationship with you is separate from her betrayal of me." As they prepared to leave, Parker asked one final question. "The settlement for the Hernandez family. That was you, wasn't it? Not Spencer?" Dom nodded once. "Why? That wasn't part of your revenge." "Because justice isn't just punishment," Dom replied, echoing his words to Elena. "Sometimes it's restoration, too." Later that evening, Dom sat alone in his apartment when his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Dominic Reeves," he answered. "Mr. Reeves." A woman's voice, professional but warm. "This is Dr. Cameron from Dallas Memorial. I'm calling about your daughter, Brooke." Dom's heart stuttered. "What happened?" "There's been an accident. Single vehicle collision on Highway 75. She's in surgery now." "I'm on my way," Dom said, already moving. At the hospital, the same one where he'd discovered Vanessa's betrayal, Dom strode through corridors with single-minded focus until he reached the surgical waiting area. He stopped short at the sight of Vanessa, her face tear-streaked, rising from a chair. What happened? He demanded, maintaining distance between them. She was driving back from MIT orientation, Vanessa explained, voice breaking. The police said she swerved to avoid another car and hit the guardrail. Dom processed this with outward calm despite the terror gripping his heart. Prognosis? They don't know yet. Internal bleeding, possible spinal injury. Vanessa wiped at her eyes. They called me first because my number was in her recent calls. They sat on opposite sides of the waiting room, the silence between them charged with a year's worth of unspoken words. Hours passed. Parker arrived, moving between his parents like a diplomat between hostile nations. Near midnight, the surgeon appeared, still in scrubs. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves, she began. Brooke's out of surgery. The internal bleeding is under control, but there was spinal trauma. We won't know the full extent until she regains consciousness. When will that be? Dom asked, his voice steady despite his fear. Hard to say. Hours, maybe days. She's fighting, though. After the surgeon left, Vanessa approached Dom cautiously. She's going to need both of us, she said quietly. Whatever's happened between us, Brooke needs her parents. United. Dom looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in a year. The woman he'd once loved. The mother of his children. The author of his deepest betrayal. For Brooke, he agreed finally. Nothing more. Vanessa nodded, understanding the limits of this temporary truce. 3 days later, Brooke opened her eyes to find both her parents in her hospital room. Her father by the window, her mother in the chair beside her bed. Well, this is weird, she murmured, her voice hoarse. Dom moved immediately to her side. How do you feel? Like I crashed a car. Brooke attempted humor despite her obvious pain. Are you two actually in the same room voluntarily? For you, Vanessa said, gently squeezing her hand. Always for you. The doctors confirmed Brooke would recover, though physical therapy would be necessary for the spinal injury. During the weeks that followed, Dom and Vanessa established a careful routine, never overlapping at the hospital except for doctor consultations, communicating through Parker or texts rather than directly. On the day of Brooke's discharge, Dom arrived to find Vanessa helping their daughter pack. California seems further away now, Vanessa was saying. With your recovery and all. I'm not changing my plans, Mom, Brooke replied firmly. MIT deferred my admission for a semester. I'm still going. Vanessa nodded, though concern lingered in her expression. Of course. I just thought maybe you'd want to recover closer to home. She can recover in Boston, Dom interjected from the doorway. I've arranged for an apartment near campus, and the best physical therapists in the area. Brooke smiled at her father's typical efficiency. See, Mom? All arranged in the Dom Reeves manner. As Vanessa moved to leave, allowing Dom to take Brooke home, she paused beside him in the doorway. Thank you, she said quietly, for putting her first. Dom met her eyes. I always did. 3 months later, Dom sat in his office reviewing designs when Ray entered with the daily briefing. Spencer's appeal was denied, Ray reported. He'll serve the full sentence. Dom nodded without looking up from his blueprints. And the Milan project is ahead of schedule. The structural innovations you designed are being hailed as revolutionary. Good. Ray hesitated, then added, Vanessa's California relocation is complete. She's taken a teaching position at Stanford. Art History Department. At this, Dom finally looked up. Near Parker. Yes. Also, I received this from her attorney. Ray placed an envelope on the desk. It's not legal correspondence. Personal, apparently. After Ray left, Dom opened the envelope to find a handwritten letter. Dom, I know words mean nothing against actions. I betrayed you in the worst possible way, and no explanation can change that. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know you well enough to understand it isn't possible. What I'm asking is simpler. Let our children love both their parents without feeling they're betraying one to love the other. Parker struggles with this daily. Brooke pretends she doesn't, but she does. I'm establishing my new life far from yours, as you want it. I won't interfere with your relationship with our children. I won't seek anything more than what I have now. The man I married valued truth above all. So here's mine. What I did was unforgivable. But our children shouldn't pay the price for my betrayal forever. Vanessa. Dom folded the letter and placed it in his desk drawer without response. That evening, he called Brooke at her Boston apartment. How's physical therapy? He asked after she'd updated him on classes. Brutal, but working. The spine specialist you found is amazing. And your mother? Does she call regularly? Brooke hesitated, clearly surprised by the question. Yeah. Weekly. Sometimes more. Good, Dom said simply. Dad? Brooke ventured carefully. Are you actually asking about Mom? I'm asking about your relationship with her. It's important that you maintain it. A long silence followed. Who are you and what have you done with Dominic Reeves? Dom almost smiled. Your accident changed some perspectives. But not your stance on forgiveness, Brooke guessed accurately. No, Dom confirmed. Some things remain constant. After ending the call, Dom walked to his balcony overlooking the city he'd helped build, structure by structure, decision by decision. Below, lights twinkled like stars fallen to earth, each representing lives connected yet separate from his own. The betrayal remained a permanent fracture in the foundation of his life, something that could not be repaired, only built around. Forgiveness wasn't in his nature. Never had been, never would be. But perhaps, for his children's sake, a cold acceptance could exist alongside his unforgiving memory. He pulled out his phone and texted Parker, coming to Stanford next month for the architectural symposium. Dinner? Parker's response came quickly. Just us? Or? Dom hesitated only briefly before typing. Your choice. It wasn't forgiveness. Dominic Reeves didn't forgive betrayal, not from his wife, not from his friend, not from anyone. But for his children, he could demonstrate that while the past remained unaltered, the future wasn't yet written in stone. Like the buildings he designed, life could be reconstructed, not the same as before, but perhaps strong enough to withstand whatever storms still lay ahead. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.